On a Friday afternoon in December of 2024, the people who ran Party City logged on to a video call and were told, in the space of a few minutes, that the company no longer existed. Not that it was in trouble, not that layoffs were coming, that today was their last day, there would be no severance, and their benefits would end when the doors did. The chief executive delivering the news had been in the job barely 4 months, and he called it the most difficult message he had ever had to deliver. Within days, going out of business signs went up in the windows of nearly 700 stores 2 days before Christmas, in the middle of the one season a party store is supposed to own. A chain that had been part of American birthdays for almost 4 decades was simply switched off, like a string of lights at the end of the night. To understand how something that big disappears that fast, you have to go back to a man who looked at a child's birthday party and saw a supermarket. Here is what makes Party City stranger than the usual tale of a store that just lost to the internet. Party City did not only sell party supplies, for much of its life it owned the factories that made them. The costumes, the paper plates, the decorations, the famous wall of balloons, a huge share of it was manufactured by companies Party City itself controlled. On paper, that was a fortress, no middleman skimming a cut, no outside supplier who could squeeze you, total command of your own shelves. And it vanished anyway, because a fortress only protects you from the enemy you built it to stop. The two things that actually killed Party City came over the wall from directions the moat was never designed for, a mountain of borrowed money that no amount of restructuring could ever fully clear, and a quiet shift in the world outside, where the party aisle simply stopped being worth a special trip. Me at Unkin 86, a retail executive named Steve Mandel opened the first Party City in East Hanover, New Jersey. The idea was almost too simple, which is usually the sign of a good one. Back then, if you needed supplies for a birthday or a graduation or a wedding, you gathered them in pieces. A card from one place, streamers from another, a cake from the grocery store, balloons from wherever happened to carry them. Mandel bet that people would happily drive to a single store that stocked all of it, in slightly absurd abundance, under one roof. A supermarket for celebrations, aisle after aisle of paper plates in every color, costumes for every holiday, and a wall of balloons so big it became the thing people remembered most. It worked, and it worked quickly. In 1989, the company began franchising, and the model spread across the country, passing 100 stores by 1993. But the move that made Party City genuinely powerful was not opening more locations. It was deciding to make the things it sold. In 1995, it bought a balloon manufacturer called Anagram, the company behind an enormous share of the shiny foil balloons in America. Then in 2005, Party City joined forces with Amscan, a major designer and maker of party goods. With that, Party City became something unusual in retail. It was both the factory and the storefront. It designed the costume, manufactured it, shipped it to its own shelves, and sold it to you, taking the profit at every step in between. For a long stretch, the fortress paid off exactly as drawn up. Party City grew into the largest party goods retailer in North America, with more than 900 locations across the United States, Canada, Puerto Rico, and Mexico once you counted the franchises. At its height, it was pulling in north of $2 billion a year, its best year landing somewhere around $2.4 billion. And it owned a season. Every autumn, Party City became the country's dominant Halloween destination, spinning up more than 250 extra pop-up shops under the name Halloween City, turning one holiday into a tidal wave of revenue. For a single month a year, it was arguably the most important costume retailer in the nation. If you grew up anywhere in America in the 90s or 2000s, the odds are good that at least one birthday, one classroom party, one last-minute Halloween costume came out of those doors. It was not glamorous. It was something more durable than that. It was a habit. The trouble did not announce itself. It seeped in from several directions at once, and at first none of them looked fatal. The first was the slow flattening of the very thing Party City sold. A balloon, a banner, a pack of themed napkins. These are not complicated products, and as online shopping matured, they became some of the easiest things on earth to order from your couch. Amazon would drop a complete party kit on your porch for less. The dollar stores stacked cheap decorations by the register. The big box chains widened their own party aisles, and every October, a competitor called Spirit Halloween threw up thousands of its own seasonal pop-ups and went straight for the single most profitable month on Party City's calendar. The one-stop party store had been built for a world where gathering everything in one trip was genuinely hard. That world was quietly dissolving. Then came the strangest wound of all, and it landed right on the company's signature product. Party City ran on helium. The balloon was not just a cute item near the entrance, it was the bait, the thing that pulled a parent through the door, where they would inevitably grab a tablecloth and a banner and a bag of party favors while they were there. But helium is a finite, globally traded gas, and in 2019 a worldwide shortage sent its price climbing and its supply lurching. Party City watched its foil balloon sales fall around 8% in a single quarter and ended up closing roughly 45 stores that year while it scrambled for a steady supplier. When it finally locked one in, the gas cost more, so the price of filling a balloon went up too. The product that was supposed to bring people in had quietly become a cost the company could not control. None of these, on its own, would have ended a healthy business. A strong company adapts. It trims, it pivots, it leans on the parts that still work and reinvents the parts that do not. That patient, expensive kind of reinvention was exactly what Party City needed in those years. And it was exactly what the company could no longer afford because of a decision made in a boardroom long before, one that had quietly drained it of the room to maneuver.
Go back to 2012.
Party City was big, profitable, and precisely the kind of stable, cash-generating business a certain type of buyer adores. That year, the private equity firm Thomas H. Lee Partners took control of the company in a recapitalization valued at almost $2.7 billion. And here is the piece that decides everything that comes after it. The part worth understanding, even if you never buy a share of anything in your life. A deal like that runs on borrowed money, and the borrowing does not stay with the people who arranged it. It gets parked on the company that was just bought. So the reward for being acquired was a balance sheet suddenly weighed down with billions in loans that Party City now had to service itself, quarter after quarter, out of its own registers. The buyers had effectively used the company's own future earnings as the collateral to buy it. Unabundant, Party City, a business that should have been stockpiling cash for the hard years coming, was instead handed a debt load running into the billions. When it went public in 2015, it was still carrying somewhere around $2.2 billion of it. That number is the whole story underneath the story. Every year, before Party City could remodel a tired store, or build a serious website, or cut prices to fight Amazon, or absorb a bad helium season, it had to feed the debt first. The interest came off the top, every quarter, no matter what. During the exact stretch when the world was shifting fastest, and the company most needed money to shift with it, the pockets were already turned out. The fortress of owning its own factories was real, but it had been mortgaged to build, and the mortgage came due every single month. This is the cruel arithmetic of a heavily indebted company in a changing market. A competitor carrying no debt can have 3 bad years and survive long enough to fix itself. A company buried under billions cannot afford even one, because the lenders do not pause for a pandemic, or a helium crisis, or a generation that would simply rather order online. The debt does not care that you own the balloon factory, it only cares that the payment is on time. Quick pause before the last act, because this is where it all comes apart. If you are recognizing the shape of this by now, the loved brand, the borrowed money, the slow outside squeeze, that recognition is the whole reason this channel exists. Each week here, one more vanished American brand gets the full story, from the first store to the last. Tap subscribe, and the next autopsy will be waiting for you. Now, the collapse. When the pandemic arrived in 2020, the parties stopped, and a company with no cushion felt it instantly. Revenue dropped hard in a single year. But the parties came back, because people always come back to celebrating. The debt, though, never left. By January of 2023, Party City could no longer carry it, and the company filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy protection, owing close to $1.7 billion. The plan, as these plans always are, was to come out leaner, shed a chunk of the debt, and fight on. And in a strange way it worked, at least on paper, though the cost revealed exactly how the fortress was being taken apart. That same year, Party City cut loose the very thing that had once made it special. Anagram, the balloon maker it had owned since the 90s, was left out of the parent company's restructuring, pushed away, and tumbled into a bankruptcy of its own before being sold off to its lenders. The factory and the store, joined for decades, were being pried apart at the seams. By October of 2023, Party City emerged from bankruptcy, having shed close to $1 billion in debt, and management told the world it had a fresh start. The fresh start lasted barely a year. The competition had not gone anywhere. Sales kept sliding, comparable store sales falling almost 10%, and its consumer products business falling nearly 25% over the following year. And even after shedding $1 billion, the company still sat beneath more than $800 million of remaining debt. There was simply no version of the math that closed. Which brings us back to that Friday in December of 2024, the video call, the chief executive 4 months into the job, the hardest message he had ever delivered. This time there was no reorganization, no fresh start, no plan to fight on. It was a wind down. Nearly 700 stores would empty their shelves in going out of business sales that began 2 days before Christmas and close their doors for good by the end of February. Around 12,000 people lost their jobs, most of them with no severance at all. It was the second bankruptcy in under 2 years, and this one had no other side. Party City did not disappear completely, and the way it survives now is its own kind of epitaph. In early 2025, the brand name and the Amscan manufacturing assets, the factory half of the old empire, were bought out of bankruptcy by an affiliate of a company called Ad Populum for around $20 million. Stop on that number for a moment. A business valued at almost $2.7 billion when the private equity firm took it over in 2012 had its name and its remaining guts sold off a little over a decade later for $20 million. The brand lived. The company died. Today the Party City name is being stitched back into retail in a smaller, humbler shape, appearing inside Staples stores, complete with a balloon station, and selling online again under its new owners. You can still buy a Party City balloon. What is gone is the thing the name used to mean, the giant dedicated store, the towering wall of helium, the whole idea that a celebration deserved a destination all its own. The empire is a label now, leased out to whoever can make use of it. And that is the real lesson hiding inside the balloons. Party City did not die because America stopped celebrating. The birthdays kept coming. The costumes still sold, just off a different shelf. What died was the belief that any of it still needed a special trip, a dedicated store, an entire company built around one aisle. When the thing you sell stops feeling special, owning the factory behind it just means you own more of a problem, and all the debt ever decides is how fast the end arrives. So before you go, let us know, honestly. What did Party City actually throw for you? The kid's birthday, the graduation, the gender reveal, the wedding you decorated on almost nothing. Because the parties were always the real thing. The store was only ever where you bought the balloons.